Today we're going back to 1924 when a group of Harley and Indian motorcycle enthusiasts formed the Santa Barbara Motorcycle Club. I'm Ed Langlo. I've wondered a lot over the years about the early days of the Santa Barbara Motorcycle Club, of which my father was a member. What was it like to race in Pershing Park when there was a stadium there? Or start at 12 o'clock at night up San Marcos Pass in a race to Gibraltar Dam? And I know just the guys to ask. This is a group of the original surviving members of the Santa Barbara Motorcycle Club. We're going to interview these young guys one-on-one and listen to their stories about what took place in the Santa Barbara motorcycling community as far back as 1924. Our first guest at 91 is the oldest surviving member of the Santa Barbara Motorcycle Club. He's still sharp, and he's a wealth of information about the early days. Walter Docker. Walt, thanks for being here. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
The first time you got on a motorcycle, Walt, was in back of the old Johnson Fruit Company packing house on Montecito Street. The building's still there. It's called the Vercal Building. Tell that story again.
Well, I used to follow these young men that were riding motorcycles in those days when I was about 13, 14 years old on my bicycle. And I was over at the racetrack watching them one day, and a friend of mine later on, he couldn't start his motorcycle. It quit on him and he couldn't start it, and he finally gave up in disgust. And he says, "Hey kid, if you can start it, you can take a ride on it." So I'm over there cranking on this thing, and everybody's laughing over on the side thinking, this kid ain't never going to get that thing started. And finally, due to some miracle, it started. And I got it running, and I was cranking the throttle, and the owner came over there and he showed me how to get on it and how to work the clutch, and he got me started, and he intended for me to go out and ride around on the little racetrack they had there. And I rode around that racetrack a few times, and I thought, well, this is kind of ridiculous to go around in a circle like this. So I just headed outside to the street. And I went down, at that time it was called South Puerto Street.
Here's a guy that can tell us about the Gibraltar Dam race. He won it 3 times, one of only 3 people to do that. A very old friend of mine, the Spaniard, Tony Rios. Tony, welcome. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you.
I want to ask you a few questions about Gibraltar Dam, but first let's go back a few years and talk about the first motorcycle. Tell us how you acquired your first bike.
Well, I bought that, it was a 29 Indian Scout, which is 45 inches normally. And the one I bought was a stroker with 52 inches in the engine.
You're sitting in front of a beautifully restored example of an Indian Scout. Indian built Scouts from 1920 to 1946. What year is this one, and tell us how you acquired this bike?
This bike was in Wisconsin. There was 80 motorcycles in this warehouse, and that was the only Indian that was in there. I think some kids had it, because the furniture van that delivered it to me was, I wonder what my old lady bought now, you know. It wasn't that at all. It was the bike and boxes of parts. Stuff was all apart, and it was leaning up against the side. They tied it to the inside of that. Well, and the guy unloaded. He said, "I brought your motorcycle." "Oh, is it mine?"
I wonder if this guy can tell us anything about motorcycles. At 14, he was arguably the youngest guy to ever join the Santa Barbara Motorcycle Club. At 87, he's probably the oldest guy making exhibition runs on a speedway bike. He climbs on a Jawa with no brakes, Rutledge Putty Mills. Putty, welcome. It's great to have you here. I can't wait to hear some of the stories that you have.
Thank you, Eddie.
You joined the club at 14, but you ran at Pershing Park before that. Tell us how that happened.
They happened to have a motorcycle race at Pershing Park. It was sponsored by the California Highway Patrol. This was 1938. And I was invited as a bicycle racer to participate during intermission. And that was my first involvement with motorcycle events.
What would you most like the motorcycle club to be remembered for, Putty?
I think being a very charitable organization and donating profits that we made from our activities to the Hillside House and to the Rehabilitation Institute on Delavina Street. That'd be my best memories.
And when you started the alumni club, you actually gave a large sum of money to the rehab department, is that right?
We gave them a check for $15,000, and that was much appreciated. We kept getting invitations after that for a long time for more.
You started riding motorcycles at age 14. You're now 87. You still want to ride motorcycles. Tell us a little bit about your passion and what motivates you to want to do this.
Well, I've always been interested in machinery, so the motorcycle supplied that interest to me. I was so fascinated by this engine with a piston in it, taking in fuel and then burning it, and explosion, and making the motor run and all that. So I had that fascination. So a motorcycle was a way to get into something, personally owning it. And I enjoyed it so much, I said, I'm going to do this until I'm 65 years old. That was a kind of a goal I set. So here I am now, my next goal is 90. So there's a passion there someplace.
Well, we hope to see you riding that bike when you're 90 years old. Thanks for being with us, Putty. It's been great talking with you.
Thank you, Eddie.
And that's the way it was. The men and their machines of the Santa Barbara Motorcycle Club. They left an indelible mark on the pages of history in Santa Barbara. They went down in their retirement knowing that they did something that they could always be proud of.
Your heart's on the loose. You rode them sickles with nothing to lose. Somehow this don't feel like home anymore. This ain't no place weary kind. This ain't no place to cross that line. This ain't no place to fall behind. Good crazy heart, give it one more try. Your body aches, you ride your sickle, sweating out the pain. Days and the nights all feel the same. This ain't no place for weary kind. This ain't no place to cross that line. This ain't no place to fall behind. Pick up your crazy heart,